Today's session is called STEM, in the STEM webinar session. Today's session is using SAM Labs to teach remotely. So for those of you that don't know SAM Labs, we are in for a great treat today because we have Mackenzie from SAM Labs with us, and she is going to talk about some of the programs that they've been working on all summer to help teachers and schools kind of help teach that coding and that robotic type of concept during a remote school session, hybrid learning, what you can do so that you know, if you don't have these equipment pieces at your students' homes, what you can do with them remotely, what we can do hybrid-wise that you can send things home to your students. So we're very excited. If you want to switch the slides, Mackenzie, to the little intro slide about us.
Oh, reload.
I'm guessing there was an issue with your picture because your picture didn't load there.
Yeah, weird.
No worries.
Come on, picture.
This is a great lesson in the fact that technology does not always work the way we want it.
Right?
So thank you all for bearing with us a moment.
There we go.
All right. So my name is Corey Freed. I am the educational consultant for Visual Sound, who is your local partner with SAM Labs. And with me today is Mackenzie from SAM Labs. So I'll let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Corey. So I'm excited to be here. Yep, my name is Mackenzie Meixner. I am the Northeastern and Southern U.S. education consultant with SAM Labs. Just a quick background, I'm a former teacher myself, taught all over the East Coast in New York City, DC, and also in Philadelphia. And I was really passionate about STEM in my classroom. And I'm excited to be with the SAM Labs team, particularly my role as an education consultant with SAM Labs is to support teachers in whatever they may need, whether that is adapting content, adapting our courses, co-teaching a lesson if you're feeling a little apprehensive about SAM Labs in the classroom, and then also in charge of professional development and training and onboarding. So I'm really excited to be here today. So thanks for having me, Corey.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to have someone straight from SAM Labs so that way we can really be presenting this with the most up-to-date knowledge.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, I am Corey, I'm from Visual Sound. So I'm going to talk about professional development that we offer toward the end because really you came here today to hear from Mackenzie. So if you want to flip the slides one more time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so if you don't already know what blended learning is it's that hybridness. It's you have that traditional classroom where kids are sitting in the classroom, then you might have some students at home on the computer, you might have all your students at home on the computer. So what can we as teachers do to kind of help bridge that gap, make it exciting, make it entertaining for the kids? And I got tongue-tied all of a sudden, I apologize for that. So the whole point of today's webinar and all the webinars that Visual Sound has been hosting throughout the summer is to just help give you, your staff, your teachers, just some ideas, things that you can do to promote STEM at home. We know that robotic kits and 3D printers and all of these tools that you use in the classroom, it's not as easy to just send a 3D printer home with every kid. It's not as easy to send a giant robotics kit home with every kid. So I hope that what we've been doing throughout the summer has helped give you guys some ideas of what you can do with your students. I hope what Mackenzie presents to you today is going to give you more ideas. And if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat as we go. Mackenzie and I will be monitoring the chat, but Mackenzie and I can both be answering the questions. And we're just, again, we want to help support you however we can. So if that means helping you teach the kids that are at home, like what can you do when the kids don't have those robotic kits, or what can you do if half your kids are in one place and half are in another? And that is the whole goal of this. So Mackenzie, at this point, it's all you. So take it away.
Thanks, Corey. All right. So I thought we'd get started with just a little introduction to SAM Labs and who we are as a company and what we offer before I jump into all of our adaptations and exciting new offerings for distance learning. So as a company, as a vision, we teach Seaman coding to develop students' computational thinking skills. And our mission is to really support teachers and educators in feeling confident to do so. Because we know once we support you guys that you'll ultimately do best by your students. And our approach is ultimately referred to as computational teaching. And so we've developed this into an approach that utilizes kind of three pillars. The first being all of our instructional resources. So we have over 100 lesson plans for our 2 courses from kindergarten to 8th grade that cover STEAM and coding. Our lesson plans are available on our website completely for free. They're completely editable for teachers and also cover a variety of standards. Our STEAM course is aligned to next generation science standards, computer science standards, and Common Core ELA and math standards. And our Learn to Code course is aligned to computer science standards. So all of those resources are available to you. Secondly, we have our software. And so these are the actual platforms that the students are coding on. Now, there's 2 pieces of software depending on which course and depending on which grade level your students are. So our Sam Space app is made for our younger kiddos, and the Sam Space app is used along with our STEAM course. And so the Sam Space app is a very visual flow-based coding app. It's very picture-based, very little words, which is best for our younger kiddos so that they're not relying on text, but they can still see the inputs and outputs of the system. They're working with buttons and DC motors and building cars, and they're able to kind of manipulate systems. And then we have our software for our Learn to Code course, which is Google Workbench, where they are actually building block-based coding for the Learn to Code lessons, and that's for the 4th to 8th graders. So as they become more advanced, they're moving into block-based coding. And then we have our very special hardware. If you know a little bit about Sam Labs, you know that this is where all the lessons kind of come to life and what makes it fun for the students. So our hardware, we have a variety of kits that we offer, and the kits ultimately depend on which course or which offering you are interested in and which grade levels you teach. So for the STEAM kit, we have some products, and I'm not going to necessarily go into the products in detail, but for example, in the STEAM kit, all of the lessons from kindergarten to 5th grade rely on this tray of materials, and the materials are blocks like the RGB LED, the light sensor block, which actually collects real light levels around the room. Students love this block. The DC motor, and there's actually 2 DC motors in the kit. And then there's some extra materials in here like wheels, a chassis, and then some Lego adapter pieces, so that if you have Legos in your classroom, you can kind of create a piece with Legos and have it kind of drive around the classroom, attaching the DC motors and whatnot. And so ultimately what the students are doing within the software is they're coding some systems, and then they're watching their code come to life with these Bluetooth blocks and these materials. So it's a lot of fun for the students. It's really kind of physical. It brings in that tinkering and that design process as well. And all of our lessons kind of involve some type of prototype to kind of bring that coding to life for kids. So that's a little overview of Sam Labs in a nutshell. But I will jump now into how we have adapted specifically in this pandemic. So back in March, we were thinking, okay, how can we support teachers, students, and parents right now? And ultimately, we landed on conducting our very own 8 weeks of STEAM and coding series and our very own summer camp. And so when we did this, it was all about engagement, which I'm sure was on the top of your mind as well when you were virtually teaching. You know, how can we engage kids through the screen? You know, what are we going to be doing? Do they need to have the same blocks? Can they kind of build the code in the app and in the software themselves? And so we landed on adapting not only content for distance learning, but also we advocated for some new products for distance learning. So I'm quickly going to go over the adapted content. I do notice my screen is flashing, so I apologize for that. It's kind of a strobe effect. Sometimes it gets a little glitchy, so I apologize. But let's jump into the content. And ultimately, what we landed on in the 8 weeks of STEAM and coding series is that we did have some kids who had the kit and had the blocks in order to code along with us. And then we had other kids who attended all 8 weeks and were absolutely in love with the lessons by just kind of building the code with the virtual blocks in our Sam Space app. So all of these blocks that you can purchase as a product, like the DC motors and the RGB LED, actually come as virtual software blocks in the app itself. And so students can still see a visual, like if they were to make a connection between a button and an RGB LED, which is the light. If they held the button in, they would still see on the app that the light is still lighting up. so they can still kind of see the visual connection between the inputs and outputs in systems. So we ultimately realized that SamLabs distance learning can occur with or without the Bluetooth blocks. And I know that that is something on teachers' minds. You know, if I have a classroom kit, sending them home can be a thing that is on their mind. And can they kind of take this home and do some homework? If they're not in the classroom a couple days a week, are they able to complete the code? And the answer is yes. Secondly, we began adapting all of our content, so over 100 lessons for distance learning. And as mentioned, it was all about engagement, but also ensuring that there was that tinkering and that designing and that hands-on learning that is occurring still. We heard from a lot of teachers and parents back when the pandemic began that, you know, the students are sitting in front of the screen all day and there's not as much kind of interaction, tinkering and designing as there would be in a classroom. And so we wanted to ensure that that's something that we kept. And I think that SamLabs as a product in general with the blocks and kind of designing the prototypes along each lesson lends itself naturally to that process, but it is something that we like to highlight. There's a lot of hands-on learning that's occurring on and off the screen. And when we adapted our content, we made sure to add even more opportunities for students to get out of their seats and not just be kind of coding in front of a screen all day. So we've added things like scavenger hunts or searches around the house into our adapted content. I'm going to show you the adapted content in a second, but here is a screenshot of the SamSpace app. This is a code for a traffic light, and you can see the DC motors are attached to when the light is green. And so this is a snapshot using all of the virtual or software blocks included in our app. So as you can see, students can still go through lesson, build the code, understand the functioning of the blocks within a system without actually having the physical blocks. Now, it's definitely more engaging and fun for the kids when they can then drive that car around their room and kind of see it come to life, but it is possible. Now, after listening to teachers and discussing kind of possibilities for what the school year may look like with distance learning, we did adapt some of our products. And so we have a brand new hybrid kit, and the hybrid kit was made for hybrid learning. So essentially, there are extra trays and lids for the kids so that they can take home the tray of blocks in a safe manner. We've also included more kits. So in our classroom size kit, it comes with 10 trays of these blocks, as I mentioned. But what we've created is a lid that will actually snap right on top of this tray so that students can take this home, and then maybe they'll bring it back to the classroom, you clean it before sending it home with another group of students. So it could look different, but that is something that we have created, and that is a new offering. Also, with tech equity on mind, we wanted to create an offering so that all students have access to an awesome STEM and STEAM education, regardless of whether or not they had access to a laptop or the Bluetooth devices at home. And so we created a STEAM at Home kit, which is a no-tech kit with various materials and activities to go along with it. So they're not full-blown lesson plans like our courses, our STEAM and Learn to Code course, but they are activities so that students can kind of still build and manipulate prototypes aligned to this team. Then we have the Alpha Kit. This is actually what I've been holding up. The Alpha Kit is just a single box, an individual sized kit that students can take home. And so some teachers have preferred to actually purchase a bundle of Alpha Kits and have the trays in a box as opposed to having that snap-on lid. So that is an option. And lastly, and most excitingly, we have been working a lot on our virtual block features so that students can code completely digitally if they wanted to. So this is something that's already available within the SamSpace app with those software blocks that I mentioned, but it is something that we've been developing for a Learn to Code course within Google Workbench so that they could still manipulate and run their code after they build the block-based code within the lessons. So I'll pause. Are there any questions so far about SamLabs as a company and kind of the basics around the adapted products or the content?
So there's nothing in the chat right now, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or come off of mute. Either one would work.
Which kit is the most popular? The hybrid STEAM home kit or the alpha?
Great question. So I would say in general, the alpha kits are the most popular. Now the hybrid kit is new. And so kind of leveraging how that's going to be approached by teachers now, it might change. But I would say out of the STEAM or the Learn to Code, so there's different blocks that are used within those courses. So we have like a STEAM alpha kit, we have a Learn to Code alpha kit, because there are different blocks used across those course platforms. STEAM tends to be the popular option, especially for the younger kiddos and using the visual flow-based coding app and the blocks that are included. But great question.
All right, and somebody posted in the chat, they said, are instructional materials available in Spanish and other languages?
So, awesome question. We are in the midst of translating everything into Spanish, all the lesson plans. We have a lot of teachers who have requested that. And so it is in the midst. The app itself is available in various languages. So if you were to download the Sam Space app and you go, if you're looking at the slide deck, the 3 lines at top of our settings, you can kind of manipulate the language of the app itself.
All right. Any more questions at this point? All right, Mackenzie, I will keep monitoring the chat if you want to move along, and we'll come back to any questions that show up.
Great. All right, so our digital classroom. So we've been adapting the content, and we have chosen, because we missed the classroom a little bit and all the digital classroom and Bitmojis that are happening, to create our very own Sam Labs digital classroom, where we will actually house all of the adapted content. So we're going to go over how to actually access the link. I will provide the link for you. We already have 8 lessons in there ready to go. How to actually save the digital classroom, and then checking out some of our new ELA connections that we've included. So we're going to take a little tour. Before we do that, our vision with this digital classroom and our adapted content is ultimately to provide an offering regardless of what your school is going to look like in the next couple of weeks. You know, if you're going back completely in person, if you're going back completely virtual, or you're hybrid, we wanted to create an offering that has more material rather than less, so that you can adapt and edit it. So it features completely asynchronous lessons, but you can adapt all of the content to make it synchronous. If you did want to do live instruction with the kids, you could still do that. So our STEAM content will be kindergarten to 5th grade, and our Learn to Code content will be available for 4th to 8th grade. And we are working on the STEAM content first, as it tends to be the more popular option before moving to Learn to Code. All of our lessons will be featured in Nearpod. So if you are familiar with Nearpod, hopefully you agree with me that it's a really awesome tool for engagement for students. We use Nearpod for summer camp and the 8 weeks of STEAM and Coding series, and the kids absolutely loved it. It's all about that engagement. I'm going to go into what Nearpod looks like in just a second if you aren't familiar. But what we have been able to do through Nearpod is kind of pre-record audio and video instruction. And so the education consultants at Sam Labs, who are all former teachers and certified teachers, we've been adapting the content by adding voiceovers and videos and screen recordings when building the code to kind of walk the students through a lesson, so that they could ultimately do it self-paced completely on their own. Nearpod's also very user-friendly, and I'll go into how that's so in just a second. But again, our goal was to offer flexibility and accessibility for students at home or at school. So now I'm going to drop the link for our digital classroom so that you have it. I definitely recommend pinning this to your Google Drive, and then that way you would have access as we continue to edit and add to the digital classroom itself. And so when you get there, your screen should look like mine, and I'm going to present so that I can kind of walk you through everything that's included. So it's up to you how you'd like to use this digital classroom. We know a lot of teachers were using it, so we figured it might be easy for you just to copy and paste a slide from the Sam Labs digital classroom into yours. If you would just prefer to use our digital classroom to get the Nearpod lesson and then drop that into whatever learning management system you're using, you could also do that. So feel free to use whatever you would like from our digital classroom. As a quick overview, we have some how-to videos to get set up, like all of the features within the classroom, how it may integrate with your learning management system or Google Classroom, and then a little Nearpod 101 video to walk you through the features of Nearpod and how to adapt a SamLabs lesson within Nearpod. In the Career Corner, we have some links to women in STEAM and coding careers and some other blogs that we have written about STEAM and coding futures. And then we have our little library down here with some links to read alouds about STEM, coding, and engineering themed books. So feel free to use those in your digital classroom. And then we have our 2 courses, which we are adapting as kind of these posters up front. So I'm going to click on the STEAM course because we have started the STEAM course first. And anywhere you see these pointers, you can essentially click and it will bring you to a special link or somewhere specifically within the digital classroom. So here you can see kind of the STEAM course directory, how to get to each classroom. Now we have officially released our kindergarten to 5th grade starter lessons. So that's 8 lessons. And so I'll show you how to get to those. So if you click on the 2-5 starter lessons, here is the classroom with those adapted lessons. And so you can essentially click on the iPad to find the adapted lesson itself. And so we have some other features within the classrooms like the classroom kit. So if you are more interested in understanding what the classroom kit is, what the product looks like, what those Bluetooth blocks are, you can click here and it'll bring you to our website. The block directory is a really amazing resource. Kind of goes through all of the various physical blocks and software blocks that we offer on our platforms and the function of those blocks in when students are building their code. And then the how-to videos as well. So I'm going to go back. So if you click on that exit sign, it'll bring you back. And let's say that I'm a 2nd grade teacher. Here you can see the 2-5 STEAM lessons are coming soon. We are on track to release them in the next couple of weeks, so we're really excited about that. But all of the lessons, so there are 13 for 2nd grade. All you have to do to find those adapted lessons is to click on the lesson that you would like. And what it will do is it will bring you to Nearpod to actually make a copy of the lesson. So lastly, I'm going to go back to our main page here to show you a couple other features of the digital classroom. The Learn to Code course, so if you are the upper elementary or middle school teacher, our Learn to Code course directory will be there as well. And then this is the view of the Learn to Code classroom for 4th grade, and essentially similar process. If you click on the laptop, it will bring you to the lesson adaption. Some other things to mention. So we do have some material lists. As we've been adapting the content, all of the lessons kind of require students to build a prototype with the Bluetooth blocks, along with some other classroom materials and some other materials that they may need to get in advance. So we just wanted to flag that for teachers. So there is a materials list for each grade level, and you can see by lesson what the students need for that lesson. And then lastly, we have been adding to our recommended read aloud list. So along with each lesson, we have included a book that aligns perfectly to that science standard that's being taught within our STEAM lesson, so that it just makes it easier for teachers if you were looking for a way to kind of move from your SamLabs lesson into your literacy block or looking for extension activities. So I know that that was a mouthful, so that's kind of our digital classroom in a nutshell, but I'm gonna hop back into our presentation and go over specifically what it looks like once you click on those iPads and you go to our adapted content and it takes you to Nearpod. So Nearpod is, as I mentioned, really awesome. They've been adding new features even since I've been using it back in March. And so it's really a great resource to not only edit and add those engagement activities and content, but also to export student data to ultimately drive instruction. And so I'm going to walk you through quickly how to use Nearpod to do that. So just as a quick overview, so I've been saying we've been adapting our content. So you may be saying, well, how? So within Nearpod, this is kind of a screenshot of what the slide deck looks like once you upload it to Nearpod. So what we've been doing is we've been taking the slide deck from our lessons, editing them, tweaking them a bit. There's, for example, some group activities that we've had to tweak so that students can do things independently, maybe getting out of their seats, doing scavenger hunts. So we've tweaked them, then uploaded them into Nearpod, and then added these engagement features. So there's two types of engagement features. There's content and there's activities. The content features are where we are adding the audio and video from us, the ECs at Sam Labs. Those are completely editable as well. So if you wanted to add on to the audio of one of our instruction, you can add a slide and voice record yourself, kind of going through a lesson. There's Nearpod 3D, which is a neat feature, which ultimately in this lesson, you can see it's Earth. So there's a picture of Earth and the kids can actually manipulate and move the Earth around to see it 3D. There's some PhET simulations. There's virtual field trips where students can actually go to that location. So in our 5th grade monkey ecosystem lesson, we go on a virtual field trip to the rainforest and they explore all of the different features of that ecosystem. And then there's interactive videos. So you can upload YouTube videos, your own videos. Then Nearpod has also been uploading their own videos. Then there's the activities. The activities are what the kids love. There's quizzes, there's open-ended questions, which is what the teachers love, so that we can collect that student data, see how students are doing on the check for understanding questions throughout the lesson. There's a matching game. So we have been using the matching game primarily for that tier 3 vocabulary within each lesson. So how are students doing on that vocabulary? There's Draw It, the Draw It feature. You can essentially upload a screenshot. So what we've been doing is uploading a screenshot of the code and then having students write on top of it to see if they can explain the functioning of the blocks within the code. And then there's a collaboration board as well. So there's a lot of features within Nearpod, but these are just a few that we wanted to highlight as we use them often in the adapted content. Next slide. So the simple
Mackenzie,
lesson.
really quick, we had a question. I just didn't realize I was muted. So somebody asked in the chat, can they be worked on collaboratively? So can activities in Nearpod, do they have to be individual or can students be small grouped?
Great question. So there's a couple different ways that you can conduct or launch a lesson in Nearpod. So I'm going to go into that right now. And so it depends on obviously how you want to use the lessons. In the summer camp, we did live lessons and then we kind of split the screen. We had Zoom in the top right-hand corner so we could see each other. And then we had the Nearpod in the bottom left-hand corner so students could click through the slides, view the slides, and then also have those engagement activities. So if you're looking for live instruction, you can do this live participation offering or the live participation plus Zoom, which is new. It basically streamlines the Zoom process so you don't have to share out the Zoom link and the Nearpod link. Really awesome. Or there's the self-paced or the student-paced as Nearpod calls it. I'm going to show you how you can assign these to your classroom in just a second when I go into Nearpod. We do have how-to videos in the digital classroom around how to do all of these things. So if I'm speaking too quickly and I don't share something, those are available as well before I forget to mention that. Okay, so here's my Nearpod. Just as a quick overview, Nearpod offers various memberships. You can have, there's free membership within Nearpod, and you can have about 3 of our Sam Labs lessons in Nearpod in that manner, just because of storage and the audio and the video files. So it's something we like to mention. You can organize it by folders. So you can see we have a lot of lessons here. So I'm going to go into 2nd grade, and let's take a look at the light and shadow. So here's where I can choose how I would like to administer the lesson. I'm going to do, for today's purpose, we're good on time, so If you guys would like, we can kind of walk through the student view so that you can get a chance to kind of see what a lesson would look like from the student's point of view. So I'm gonna do a live participation lesson, and I'm going to use the same, I'll launch a new live lesson. And so once you launch the lesson, Nearpod's very user-friendly because all the kids need is this code. And so all they have to do is to go on to nearpod.com, and in the student section, there's a space for them to enter the code. They enter this code and they're brought to the slide deck. You have the option to make it a Zoom meeting. We're already in one, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to drop this code into the chat, and you guys can log in to this live session as a student with your first name. And as you can see, it's compatible with Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams. If you wanted to send it out directly via email or with a link, you could do that as well. And so as a teacher, here I can see kind of what as the students are logging in. So see Corey's in there. Awesome. And so give kids a couple of seconds to log in. So here is where our voice recordings are. So if you did choose to, do live instruction, you can edit out and remove all of the voice recordings if you would like. All right, I'll give you guys about a couple more seconds to get logged in if you'd like. All right. And so the difference between the live session and the self-paced is that the self-paced, the students can click through the slides at their own pace. And yes, you can require that they complete each slide before moving on to the next slide. But the live session is actually controlled by the teacher and the instructor. So I do my little intro to light and shadows, devices, the warm-up, what is the time of day in different countries in the world. And then this is that 3D content that I mentioned. And so in our audio, we have students think about when is it daytime in the United States? And when would it be nighttime in the United States? And how does that differ for people who live on the other side of the world? And so then you can see, you can now go in, kids can play with this, manipulate it, and go through. Then we go into talking about the human eye. And this is the first draw it for the lesson. So go ahead and take 30 seconds here to draw your best model of the human eye so that we can get that data, and I can show you what that data looks like when we export it. But you can see that I've uploaded the template, and now students can draw, or they can have text and write text on top of it. But it's a really neat feature because I can see in real time how the students are doing, who's gotten started, making sure everyone is on the right track. These are some beautiful eyes. Love the eyelashes, Corey. Awesome. All right, don't want to cut anybody short with their eye drawings. So once you've completed your drawing, you're going to select submit. And this is an example of what would be required before a student can move to the next slide if you did choose to do self-paced. All right, so now we'll go through a couple more adaptations here so that you can see. Here is an example of the PhET simulation. So you should be able to manipulate it on your end to find the white light. So students can kind of manipulate this in real time to explore light and how the human eye actually interprets it. Mini lesson, and then here's the keywords, and then we have our matching game. So here as a teacher in real time, I can see how many tries it took the students to actually complete the matching. So how are the students doing with that tier 3 vocabulary? And then we move into the check for understanding question and discussing what is the difference between a white light and a red light. And so ultimately they are multiple choice and we get real-time data from this. So let me kind of end this session very quickly. and show you where those features are within Nearpod if you were interested in adapting your own lessons or adding to hours or taking away from hours, whatever that may be. So when you go into the light and shadow lesson, you'll select edit. The code's going to be lost. So the code that I just gave you will be lost anytime you edit. So anytime you edit, you have to give a new code. And from here, if you double click on a slide and you go to add slide, you'll see those features that I was mentioning. So there's the content and then there's the activities. And so you can add the content and activities directly there. Or if you would like to remove any content or activities, you could also do that. Let's say you want to remove our audio. You click on that slide and you just press the trash can, you will trash our audio, which I completely understand if you choose to do that for your students. So that's kind of an overview of Nearpod. I'll pause now. Are there any questions about the SamLabs lessons within Nearpod?
All right, so there's nothing new in the chat right now. Again, if you want to come off of mute or if you want to type your questions, anything you have, Mackenzie is a wealth of knowledge for us today.
All right, cool. So if anything pops up, yeah, feel free to drop it in the chat, but I'll show you quickly how to export the student data. So here in the slides is a step-by-step of how to access it. You're going to click on the 3 dots in the top right-hand corner. You'll select reports, and then you'll click on the session that you want based on your classes. And I'm gonna show you how to actually export the data that we just collected with that sample lesson. All of the reports are based on lessons that you personally launch, so not co-teachers or fellow teachers in school, but lessons that you've launched. And you can also download these session reports as a PDF or CSV. So if you were looking to collect that data, use that data, you can do so. So now I will show you what that looks like in real time. So I'm going to save and exit this lesson. And I'm interested in collecting the data from that light and shadow lesson. So here are the 3 dots in the top right-hand corner. You're going to go to reports and select the lesson. And now you can see all of the times that you have administered this lesson to students. So here's our session. So I'm going to click on that. And this is the session report that Nearpod will produce. So it's really great for teachers to kind of collect that data on those check for understanding questions, those open-ended questions. And so you can kind of get a play-by-play to see how the students did and who got the correct questions correct, who didn't answer, who got them wrong. For the open-ended, again, it's going to show you each student in a word-for-word response that they submitted. The draw's really cool. You can see the actual picture that they drew, and if you click on it, it'll zoom in so you can see in detail what was happening in their picture. You can see how many times it took them to complete the matching activities, and then you can also see the collaboration board. So when students are sharing out on the collaboration board, what everybody has shared. So that's kind of an overview of the summary. And here's where you download it. So you can download it as a PDF or a CSV, or you can share it out with fellow teachers, parents by email, whatever that may be. So that's really Nearpod in a nutshell and how we've adapted through Nearpod our SamLabs lessons and what those kind of activities and content features look like. The last thing that I'd like to go over is the release of content. So we have been hard at work working on the STEAM course. Again, that's the course for kindergarten to 5th grade. We have already completed the 8 starter lessons, and those are housed in the digital classroom that I shared with you. Now, the starter lessons, I highly recommend that teachers do the starter lessons before diving into one of the standards aligned lessons. That being because they are bite-sized. They introduce kids to what SamLabs is, what our software is, what our hardware is, how to actually build the blocks, and then some sample connections. They also follow our modular structure so students can get used to the routine with a SamLabs lesson before beginning a lesson itself. So those are ready to use for you guys. We have been working on 2nd to 5th grade content first. So we have about 40 lessons that will be released over the next couple weeks. And all of those, again, are aligned to the standards, and they will be ready to use in the digital classroom. And if you check back to the digital classroom link and you pin it to your Gmail, sorry, can't speak. If you pin it, and you can actually access it, and it will update in real time. So you'll see us in there working. It is a work in progress, so you might see my little face in there uploading things as we go. We are aiming to complete all of STEAM by the end of September. So after we finish 2-5, we're going to jump into K1 in about 20 of those lessons and have those uploaded and ready for the younger kiddos. And then we're going to dive into the Learn to Code course, which is for our 4th to 8th graders, purely aligned to the computer science standards, diving more into coding through Google Workbench. And so the aim is to release that by the end of October.
So Mackenzie, we do have a question in the chat that says, what standards? If I missed it, I apologize. So now I know you mentioned computer science standards at the end. Are these next generation science standards? Are they ISTE standards? Are they Pennsylvania state standards? What standards are they hopefully matching up to right now?
Yeah, great question. So I was going to go on to samelabs.com and show you how to access all of the lessons so you could take a look at the standards. So the STEAM course, this is for kindergarten to 5th grade. This course is aligned, every lesson is aligned to next generation science standards, computer science standards, Common Core ELA and Common Core Math, and then some music standards as well. But the lessons are really, I like to tell teachers, the STEAM course is designed to teach that science standard through coding. Whereas our Learn to Code course is purely aligned to the computer science standards and only the computer science standards. So as kids develop their coding skills, they're diving into depth around algorithms and computational thinking and block-based coding and what that may look like. We do have maker task cards as well. These are more for exploratory, so giving students a challenge to maybe create a smart game board, and then there's no step-by-step, there's no standard alignment, it's just giving them kind of challenges and a hint as to what block they may use to do so. So this is kind of what the Content Hub looks like. If ever you wanted to take a look at those standard alignment maps, they are here under the Additional Resources tab. Awesome. Any other questions? So lastly, I'll just say, if you are interested in staying up to date about the new content when it's being released, if you have any questions about how we've adapted it or questions about what we've included, feel free to reach out to me at mackenzie@samlabs.com. And I'll just open it up to any questions about what I presented.
All right, if anyone has any questions, again, feel free to come off of mute or type them in the chat. Mackenzie, if you want to go to the next slide, if any questions come up, we can come back to them. So I just want to really briefly talk about professional development that we offer here at Visual Sound. So as Mackenzie was just talking about Sam Labs and Nearpod, these are a lot of amazing tools that you can use in the classroom, but sometimes, it can be overwhelming. All of these new tools have been coming out so quickly lately. And here at Visual Sound, we want to support you and your staff as your teachers are, exploring this new way of teaching. This is the new normal, and it's not going to be changing anytime soon. So we need to go from where we were in the spring and it was just survival mode, and we need to move forward and say, okay, this isn't survival mode anymore. This is teaching mode. And teachers are amazing at adapting and growing and being prepared to help their students, because that's what we do as teachers. So here at Visual Sound, we want to just let you know that we're here to support you. And if you need help helping your teachers with Google, with Smart Learning Suite Online, with Microsoft Teams, if you need help with Sam Labs, with Nearpod, we are here to support you. So please reach out to your account manager, and we can try to set something up so that your team can be successful, because when you're successful, we're successful. So I really appreciate Mackenzie's time today. Thank you so much for joining us. To everyone who is watching today's session, Thank you all so much for joining us. This was recorded and it will be emailed out to everyone who registered for the conference or for the webinar after we upload it. If you do have any more questions, Mackenzie's email address is mackenzie@samlabs.com. My email address is cfreed@visualsound.com, and we can drop both of those emails in the chat if you'd like so that you know how to spell everything. But please don't hesitate to reach out because, again, we are here to support you in any way that we can. All right, Mackenzie, thank you again.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining today. I appreciate it.